What's up, everyone? Hope y'all are doing well, and welcome to my channel where you guys can get Eagles insights, updates, and news. Today I will be covering all the free agency moves by the Eagles, kind of recapping their 2024 free agency period and giving my thoughts on what the signings and extensions mean for the Eagles. And because of all this content I have to cover, it's going to be a little bit of a longer video than normal, so just stick with me as we go through it. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Let's start it off with the upgraded defense. So we have seen the Eagles really make some good strides towards a better roster on defense. We see that they signed 7 people for the defense, and they especially focused on the weak spots from last year. Before I jump into the details, though, I will be going over some overall points and then going in depth on some of the more impactful signings and extensions out of the people that you'll see that they signed. To start, I like how they focus on linebacker, and they picked up 3 linebackers in free agency. Even though this isn't a long-term solution, I still think they are definite improvements from last year's linebacker core. And we can always extend certain linebackers depending on how productive they are. And the Eagles can also realistically go for linebacker in the draft, which I know they aren't too keen to do, but it could be more of a long-term solution for the Birds. Ultimately, we have to see how they produce for us, the linebackers we just signed, but it's definitely an improvement from last year. On the other hand, though, I want to talk about how the Eagles really like to focus on developing their D-line. We see this every year in the draft and or free agency, and 2024 was no different. With movement on the D-line, like Fletcher Cox retiring, Graham's getting older, and Reddick, his future's unclear right now, I think bringing in younger talent like Bryce Huff was a great move, and we'll talk about that later. But first, let's move on to the offensive big picture. Now, even though the offensive signings weren't as impactful, in my opinion, as the defensive signings, and that's because the Eagles already have a great offense, and it's going to be hard to improve it to the level that they're going to improve the defense, I still think the Eagles made a huge impact on their offense, even in free agency. And the main thing was obviously the addition of Saquon Barkley, and I feel like that's going to definitely help their offense get back to that Super Bowl level that we saw in 2022. To hear more about this huge signing, I mean, you can go and watch a video that I posted on my channel 2 weeks ago. It was like an hour after he got signed, and that goes into detail. That gives you stats. That gives you some of my thoughts on Saquon Barkley, and that's just going to be more than I'm going to be able to give you in this video alone. So go watch that. But back to it, the mission for that third wide receiver is carrying on, and I think signing 2 wide receivers this free agency to fight for that spot is a great move for the Eagles. I still think they should go target someone in the draft. I'm not sure what round and who yet, but this is definitely a step in the right direction that they're focusing on that third wide receiver. Something else I just want to mention, I think it was interesting to note, Kenny Pickett from the Steelers. For me, it was out of the blue. I definitely wasn't expecting it. But the good thing is now we have that backup quarterback for Jalen Hurts. I know Jalen Hurts likes to run the ball, so that's definitely a risk for injury. And getting this backup quarterback that I think is better than Mariota is going to help us if we definitely need him. And one more thing, Matt Hennessy, O-lineman from the Falcons. This is big because this is going to fill the hole from Kelsey's retirement. And we can kind of test out different people on the offensive line, but one more person isn't going to hurt at all. So now we're going to move on to some of the extensions of free agency, and here we go. So for the extensions for the Eagles, I don't think there's too much to say here, but the big thing I wanted to point out were the special teams unit from last year. The Eagles extended a lot of key players from the squad for the next 3 to 4 years, and those special teams ranked in the top 5 last year in the NFL. So I think it's very crucial to keep them together, and this move was genius by the Eagles. And for that record-breaking deal for Dickerson, I also think that was an amazing move for them to do, and I'll cover that in a little bit when we get to it. But let's get to our first impact signing, which is Saquon Barkley. So this one's going to be pretty quick because I've already covered this signing in another one of my videos in depth. But the gist of things is that with this great Eagles O-line, Barkley should have a breakout year for the Eagles. I'm thinking maybe 1,300 yards, and it's going to take this offense to the next level of productivity. And again, feel free to go watch that video on my channel for more detail. So we're going to move on to CJ Gardner Johnson, the returning Eagle. So, CJ Gardner Johnson is coming back to the Eagles and Philly, and I know it's a little controversial. He said some things about Eagles fans, but on the field, I want to see production, and I feel like he can give us the production we're looking for. He's very impactful because the Eagles really needed help last year in the backfield, and we're addressing that in free agency by signing him for the safety position. And he will definitely fix the poor safety play we saw last year, and hopefully replace it with something or someone who has more experience and has proven results with the Eagles in that 2022 Super Bowl year. It's one step towards the better defense that the Eagles are trying to build with Vic Fangio. Hopefully that defensive scheme will be way better, and with improvement in coaching, eventual improvement in the corner position, and finding long-term solutions for linebackers, the Eagles are in great position. So now we're going to take a look at another very impactful defensive signing, who is Bryce Huff from the Jets. When Bryce Huff was signed, it didn't really jump out to me as a position of need or the player we really needed on the team. But the more I looked into the signing, I think it was another genius move for the Birds. Bringing someone with so much potential and so much proven talent will pay off in the future. Again, this signing wasn't one of the most glaring problems the Eagles had on defense compared to the linebacker position, safety position, and cornerback, but it might have been the most important to address through free agency for the foreseeable future of the Eagles. And I say this because the D-line has obvious holes in it, with Fletcher Cox retiring, Graham getting older, and then Reddick potentially getting traded. We needed someone of Bryce Huff's impact to really help the Eagles out. And in my opinion, the Eagles really needed to bring in some younger talent to continue to structure that D-line and create the dominance that we had from our 2022 Super Bowl year. And that's exactly what Bryce Huff accomplishes for this team. Even when he was on the Jets, playing less than average snaps, he was top 5 in win rate in true pass set situations, which I believe will carry over to the Eagles, and he will show another level of dominance on this team. And this signing is great because I believe it will move the Eagles in the right direction on defense, adding more youth to the defensive side of the ball. So now for our last impact signing of this free agency period, I want to talk a little bit about Devin White and the linebacker position. So to put it in really simple terms, I can see this being the best or most disappointing signing on this list. And the reason I say that is because when White was on the Bucs, he was playing at an all-pro level around 2020, 2021, and then kind of dropped off as a player. I mean, recently he's been struggling on the Bucs, and now he's on the Eagles, obviously. So I'm interested in what kind of production he can give to us. But maybe the change of scenery is exactly what he needs to get him back on track. I mean, with Vic Fangio, he can teach him more discipline on and off the ball, fit him more in the defensive scheme that's appropriate for him, and I can see him elevating to a better playing level than last year on the Bucs. But how good is that going to be? I'm not sure yet. Unfortunately, the Eagles signed 2 more linebackers, so there will be competition to see who's going to play over the course of the season, and hopefully that competition is playing time will push them to improve how they perform on the field. But to end it off, I really just want to revisit Landon Dickerson's extension and give some insight on that deal. So I mentioned before that I think this move was a masterpiece by the Eagles. They took one of the best performing linemen in the league and extended him 4 years, keeping that crucial piece of the O-line secure. And this is especially important because with Kelsey leaving, the Eagles now have the ability to move around and test different linemen like newly acquired player Hennessy and Dickerson to try different people at center. And the Eagles could also just keep Dickerson at his current position on the line. And he has been so effective there too, having some of the top stats in the league to back it up. And I believe that the O-line is the most important squad to really keep together on a team, because without them, it's very hard on the QB who runs literally the entire offense. So keeping an experienced and talented lineman like Dickerson for a large amount of time, like 4 years, is huge. And that's a huge win for the Eagles. All in all, even without Kelsey, the Eagles have already made moves to maintain the dominance of their offensive line, and I really like that. And like I said, this is the key for a Super Bowl level offense to exist this year. Alright, so that's it for me and for this free agency recap. So just watch out for other uploads in the near future about mock drafts and insight on who the Eagles should target in the draft. Like always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like or subscription. It really helps me out, helps me grow this channel, and give you guys more quality videos. As a small content creator, I mean, it's probably cliche, but like, it does help me out. And these subscribers mean a lot to me at this point in my career. So guys, have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video.